what is blockchain and what is its main utility? Interesting enough, blockchain is really about, it's a replacement for what we call trust. So when you send money from one person to another, in today's society, for instance, you have people in the middle that validate that process. We call them trust agents. They're bankers, actually, in some case like SWIFT or whatever it may be. The fact of the matter is that it takes a lot of human resources and a lot of people and a lot of institutions to validate money when you send it from one person to another, especially in a different country. They actually say that the real cost of sending money between two different people is about $25. And it takes time. And sometimes even these big companies like SWIFT get hacked because the software they use is so old. The interesting thing about blockchain and what Satoshi Nakamoto and the creators of this currency brought to the world is that we use technology to replace that trust. We use trust agents that are in effect computers around the world that validate transactions. It sounds quite simple, but actually it's really complicated. And it's mainly because we solved a couple of really big mathematical problems. Theories, actually. One's called the Byzantine General's Trust, and the other is called double spending. How can you not stop people from spending money twice? Satoshi Nakamoto and Bitcoin solved those two problems. That's why it's successful. That's why it works. It's never been hacked in its history since 2009. It has continued to grow. The market cap is about $60 billion. People are sending money all around the world, or sending Bitcoin around the world. And it's tradable against the US dollar or any fiat currency, so you can actually turn it into real money. So the first thing I ever bought with Bitcoin was a pizza in 2012. It cost 10,000 Bitcoin. 10,000 Bitcoin today is worth, about 43 million euro. So it's an interesting concept on that level to think about how much it's valued since it was born. But also the fact that it has a finite amount. So it can't be inflationary. It cannot. There were only ever 24 million Bitcoin ever created. So like if you have a dollar or a euro or a pound, they can just keep putting money in. That's what the Federal Reserve does. That's what the central bankers do. It's impossible for Bitcoin to, there will always be scarcity because there are only so many of them. So that's the real utility of it. How will this affect the outdoor industry? I think firstly, the most obvious part will be the transition in the supply chain. That's where this technology called blockchain, which backs Bitcoin, has been revolutionary. Because they took these concepts that Satoshi Nakamoto created to create this new money. They've taken, the underlying technology is called blockchain. They've taken this technology and they've replanted it into different markets to see how, what can we do with this let's call it computerized trust. How can we, use these technologies in other industries? And one of them, the real obvious one, is supply chain. So right now it takes, I live in the Netherlands, and Rotterdam is one of the largest ports in the world. And very often the paperwork arrives after the boat. It's just a crazy amount of, craziness and paper and drawers and desks and even if computerized and people don't share ledgers, and then people have different books and different recordings of different things that happen. Things get lost. The costs are very significant. There's no transparency. One fell off the boat. That kind of stuff. With the blockchain, everything gets recorded. So, and what's interesting is the blockchain is immutable, which means that you can never change it. So that's why we call it the block and the chain. So one block goes on, so you have two ends to a block. The front end of the block seals off that part, and then the next block comes and seals off that part. So each part of this long chain that's been around since 2009, those records can't be changed in the past. So we call that an immutable record. So any kind of supply chain operation, there's absolute and total and complete proof. Nobody can change the books. Nobody can say, wipe out that number and put in a new number. That's probably the most significant thing. Then I think after that, we're going to talk about the tokenization. We have a word called tokenomics actually in our world, where we're reinventing the concept of money itself. So we have a lot of new products and brands tokenizing themselves. So Burger King in Russia is creating their own cryptocurrency, for instance. So if you buy into this cryptocurrency early, like the 10,000 Bitcoin pizza, and suddenly, what you spent 10 euro on can buy you enough hamburgers to feed your whole city maybe in 3 years. But of course, it will still cost €3 to buy a burger. But if you have one of these digital coins that you bought which we can prove that only you have because of this new technology, then you can, you accrue new wealth. So we're creating, in essence, what we're doing is we're creating new liquidity from the ground up. So it's not about the government, the central banks giving money down here. It's coming from the people, it's coming from new ideas. And when everybody believes something has value, like a bill, like a euro, whatever, it has value. That's the psychology of money itself. So I think it'll be really interesting for the outdoor industry. The other part I'm seeing really interesting is that a lot of these people involved in this blockchain industry are young millennials in their 20s. And I would say almost all the young millennials that I know in their 20s are digital nomads. So they're like outdoors, they're traveling, they're in Thailand, they got whole communities. All they need is an internet connection. That's it. For the rest of it, they're like with a backpack and their yoga pants, or that's perhaps I think could be a new demographic for kind of a tech outdoor mix of new culture arriving.